Last week I released a video about how to resize your images for the web and looked at various formats, profiles and free and paid software to do so. This week I'm going to show you how to make your images pop for social media platforms such as Instagram.
Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Use coupon code CARL to get a 10% discount.
So as we covered it last week, in this video we don't need to cover how to resize your images. Instead, we're going to look at ways to make them shine on social media. Instagram is one of those social media platforms that is great for photographers. It provides an instant way to publish your work and try to grow a following. It also provides an easy way for your audience to stay in touch with what you are producing. But it's important that we consider the current limitations of the platform in terms of what and how it is displayed. Generally speaking, it's a mobile-based platform, with the majority of people viewing it on their smartphones or tablets. This is of course most likely when not plugged into the charger and most likely sat down at an indoor location such as home, a cafe or a waiting area rather than walking down the street on a bright day. Immediately from this, we can deduce that the majority of the viewers will be looking at your images on a mobile platform, something like 70% of viewing on mobile phones. So if we look at the percentage of mobile phone sales, we can deduce the type of devices mostly used for viewing. Apple have about 25% of the market share, Samsung 31% and Huawei about 12%. The rest is divided up in similar portions amongst many brands. So let's focus on Apple and Samsung devices and compare the visual appearance of Instagram as an app on those phones. Here, indoors, all three of these Apple devices appear very similar, and they all already appear more contrasty and brighter than the same image displayed on a calibrated monitor. I've checked two other Samsung devices compared to the Apples, and I have another one here, and like the others, they appear about the same, quite similar to the image on the calibrated monitor, under normal brightness and viewing conditions. We also checked them with the brightness manually set to around 70%. Now from that very simplified test, it would indicate that viewing on a mobile device will already produce a very similar version of the image compared to how you see the same image on a calibrated monitor on the Samsung, but a slightly more contrasty and brighter version on the Apple devices. In fact, the Apple devices also looked almost identical in contrast and brightness to various MacBook Pro screens that we checked. So the bottom line here is that you would think actually maybe you don't need to adjust your images any further for Instagram than you already do for your website. And to be perfectly honest, I often don't. I simply try to get the correct exposure and contrast based on a calibrated monitor, and then I upload the same image to my website and to Instagram. One of the major problems with Instagram is the amount of compression applied to the images that you upload, which means that no matter what you load to Instagram, it is going to be resized to about 1080 pixels wide or up to 1350 pixels high on a vertical edge or vertical shaped image. But the great thing is that it's going to downsize them automatically anyway. So as long as you don't upload lower resolutions than this, then you'll be fine. But be aware that sometimes you may decide to recrop your image within Instagram before you actually post it. As I choose 2500 pixels on the longest edge for all of my website images, I don't make any further adjustments to them for size. I simply post my 2500 pixel images directly to Instagram, knowing that they will be downsized. The next thing, unfortunately, is compression. This is the amount of squashing Instagram applies to reduce the data size taken up on their servers. To do this, they use a heavy amount of compression, a bit like taking a high quality image and then saving it at quality 0 in JPEG format. Well, it's not actually quite that bad, but often when you explore the images, they do look like they've been compressed to equivalent of around 5 or 6 in JPEG format. So what this means is you shouldn't be uploading images to Instagram that you've already heavily compressed, otherwise things are just going to get worse. I'd say it's acceptable to upload a level 10 or 9 compression first generation JPEG, but do not go any lower. So if I'm deciding to compress to level 6 or 7 for my website, I'll also export a level 10 compression JPEG for Instagram. Unfortunately, we have no control over the size or compression that the images end up on Instagram, but you will help yourself with color by using an sRGB profile. So although I'd recommend working on your images in Adobe RGB during the post-production stage, your final JPEGs destined for web and social media should be exported with an sRGB profile. Now, although we have already deduced that the images on phones and tablets are mostly already more contrasty and brighter than on a calibrated desktop display, that doesn't mean to say you can't give them a little bit more pop just to make them come alive, or to compensate for the times when people might be viewing outdoors or in brighter conditions. It's also important to remember that viewing anything is perceptual. That is, our perception of the image is largely based on surrounding information and the environment. So things can look very different if we're holding the phone against the ground, or holding it up with a window behind, or in an environment with lots of potential reflections off of the screen from top lighting or from surrounding windows. Now, many of you may be thinking, okay, great, I'll sharpen up my images in Photoshop or Lightroom and I can add a bit of saturation. However, I wouldn't recommend that, because you are not seeing the image in its final resting place. That is on the phone or tablet in Instagram. I'd suggest you actually use the in-camera photo editing tools, or the ones within Instagram itself. Now, by this, I don't mean by applying those horrible filters, which thankfully have seemed to gone out of fashion, but I mean by using the image editing tools. As an example, with these images, we uploaded the standard version as it would be on my website, and we also uploaded another version with some slight tweaks. These tweaks in Instagram were where I leave the image in normal mode, then I select edit, and I apply 10% saturation, 25% sharpen, and around 20% structure, which is essentially a local contrast control. Now, you may need to play around with these settings depending on the image that you're posting, but they'll give you a good starting point. Well, I hope you found that information useful. Thanks for watching.
This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Carl to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.